welcome once again to our show, Searching for MacGuffin, with your host, George,
Gabe, and Link.
This is episode 5, and today is going to be the final topic in our top 5s.
Yes, today we'll be talking about our top 5 favorite movies. If you want to know a little bit more about us, I suggest you go back to our 4 previous podcasts and check out our top 5s for comics, anime, video games, TV shows, and now I guess you figured out what our top 5 movies are. So I guess I'm gonna start it off, and in my top 5, I have an animated movie here, a 3D animated movie. See, I guess that's what you would describe it.
I mean, I don't know. You haven't said the movie.
Yeah.
The suspense is killing me.
So I love animated movies, so that's why I'm really excited about this one, and I believe it's called 3D animation. But it is the movie Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Wow, that is a dark horse pick right there.
I love that movie.
5?
Of all time?
See, that's why I'm saying, this is what I'm saying, like, these are movies that produce the most joy, that spark the most joy, and I would watch over and over again. And I love Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
That's awesome. Okay.
It's also the movie that introduced me to Phil Lord and Chris Miller, and I love those 2 movie directors.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that did Lego Movie, 21 Jump Street,
Solo.
Rip Solo.
So that's
No.
I wanted that. I know some of you guys didn't want that. I really wanted them to direct a solo movie. I believe in them. I believe Kathleen Kennedy screwed up there.
Okay.
But that's just me. I'm a big fan of their guys. Phil Lord is from Miami. He's one of us.
One of us.
One of us. So yes, and Phil Lord also produced the new Into the Spider-Verse movie, which won Best Picture 2 years ago, right?
Animated?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Animated picture 2 years ago.
Right.
So I love these guys. This is the first introduction I had to them, and I was blown away by their sense of humor of the show, of the movie, the heart in it as well. I see that they always have this theme of father-son or parent-child relationship in most of their movies.
Man Wookie.
Too
soon?
So I love Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. I know that there are other better movies like Pixar movies that tend to be better than it, but this is the one that I absolutely love. It's hilarious. I love Flint Lockwood.
Flint Lockwood.
Flint Lockwood, I got my eye on you. If I could, I would invent a spray that becomes shoes. And I just love the movie so much. So yeah, that's I guess this is my dark horse.
Well, looking on the bright side, by the way, in regards to the solo Fallout, I think that them not working on that or not finishing that fast-tracked Into the Spider-Verse. So there's always a bright side, I think.
Either way, Disney won.
That is true. Although I don't think Disney makes any money off of that movie. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Sony.
right, Sony. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sucks. All right, Gabriel, your turn.
All right, so kicking off my list, I'm going to go with one of the movies that I had just an amazing experience in the theater, and then it's, for me, I can watch it anytime it's on the TV, and that's going to be Interstellar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Interstellar for me, I mean, obviously, we'll get the soundtrack out of the way. Soundtrack is amazing, and I know a lot of people tend to say, oh, like Hans Zimmer fooled us into thinking Interstellar was a good movie. And when I read that, I was like, do they have a point? But looking back on it, I mean, I had to go back and watch it again, and when I watch it, it's just, I don't know, it's something about it. Like, I think back to the first time I saw that movie. I was finishing high school, and it was like one of those first times where like I was driving myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the movies and I saw that by myself, and I had like, I don't know what it was, an out-of-body experience, whatever you call it, but watching that with the music, with just the ambience, being by myself, being just really present there, not having really any distractions, it was I don't know, it's a moment like how you said, Link, it's a moment like it just sparked joy. It made me feel some type of way.
Yeah.
And like that feeling like has stayed with me, and I can watch that at any point. Some people feel like it's really intense.
Yeah.
Like I was watching it like with a friend one time, and they're like, I have to stop watching this. This is too much for me right now. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know. Like I love that stuff, but like it can be too much for some people. It can be too intense.
Yeah.
But for me, I took that as like, wow, it's very moving, and I mean, it made me a firm believer in Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
All right.
There was a couple of times. I mean, because I remember he was like the rom-com guy. Like, I remember seeing those DVDs around and like watching him with some of the movies. I'm like, oh, that's the guy from the rom-coms. And then I'm watching him in this, and I'm like, wow. And I hadn't seen Dallas Buyers Club at the time. And
that predates this?
Yeah. Pretty sure.
I think so.
And so after that, I was just kind of like, I really like this guy. And then going on top of that, like he also had his Oscar speech for Dallas Buyers Club.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And I was like, man, this guy is
Cool.
This guy's like, yeah, he's just so like
cool,
the
calm,
whole speech was just so like I don't know if he planned it or if he didn't, but it's like it came out like so smooth.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, like, and the performances, Anne Hathaway, the surprise with Mr. Damon in there, that one got me too. That one, and that kind of threw me off. It was like, is this like a Martian like crossover? Like, what's happening right now? But yeah, definitely that's definitely up on my list.
I'm with you. I think that movie is so strong, and I know that it does have like a mixed reception, but I think it's the kind of movie that's deeper than it is on the surface, but not as deep as I think some people expect it to be.
Yeah.
You know, I think they're like going in like, you know, oh, how is this gonna be like? You know, it's gonna blow my mind, and then when it's not, they're underwhelmed. But I mean, I think there's so many themes that you can extract from the film, and it's also like your own perspective, because it's not vague in a way, but almost like indirect, where like you kind of bring who you are as a reader to the film.
And it's up to you how you receive it, how you take it, and what you get from it.
Yeah, what does everything mean? What does it represent? It's interesting what you just said about like you've seen it over and over again. And I remember getting a ticket for this movie that was like an all-you-can-eat pass to Interstellar, because it was on so many formats. I don't know if anyone remembers, but they released a ticket that was like, you pay like $40 or something like that, and you can just watch it for the entire duration of its theatrical run.
Oh, wow. No, I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. So I got that because I'm like, I'm going to watch this at least like 2 or 3 times. And I did. You know, I think I watched it on like, you know, every different format, like IMAX and the regular theater, in the, you know, 80 millimeter or whatever. And then once I was done with the movie, I was like, I still have this ticket though, and they're still giving Interstellar. So I just keep buying tickets to Interstellar and watching every other movie that was on the theater. So it was like my movie pass before movie pass. It was my A-list, you know? And like nobody cared. Like, so I just kept going to all these different movies. So thanks, Interstellar. Bro. AMC Movies thinks that I saw your movie like 16 times.
Christopher Nolan would be so mad at you.
Nah, Nolan probably had like this, like, man, this guy George is really liking this movie.
Yeah, why would he be mad? I'm pretty sure he's getting a cut of every ticket that I was buying.
Because you know how much of a purist he is.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, but I saw it on an 80 millimeter. That should make him happy. And the other thing you said about watching it over and over again, kind of back to Link, because I wanted to ask you on this. How many times have you seen Cloudy?
Me?
Yeah.
Since it came out?
Yeah.
Probably like 6, 7 times.
Like 6 times? That's because that's interesting to me. Like the movies on my favorite list are like, I watched them like dozens of times. So I was like, that's so interesting, like to have a movie like on your top 5 that, you know, you've only watched a couple of times. And go ahead.
Oh, well, sometimes it's like, I mean, I'm not saying this in your case, but some people can treat it as like, this is like a special occasion. Like, this is my favorite movie. They hold it in such high regard that it's like,
right, I'm
going to have to be in a certain, like, I don't know, mindset or certain, like, setting that I'm going to watch this because I'm going to pay it reverence or respect or for whatever. So I can definitely see both sides of that coin.
No, that's why I like it, because it's such an easy movie to get into. Like, it's not that deep or anything like that.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, she's going to watch it, laugh, cry, and be happy. Back to Interstellar, I remember... You mentioned that you watched it multiple times in theaters. You took me one time. I think it was one of the first times you started driving, and you took me with you.
Yeah, I remember. It was after I was like, I need to take everyone. I need to convince people to watch the movie.
So I went, and I was like, oh, this movie was good. I liked it. Not as much as...
Not as much as Cloudy with the
Cloudy
Chance of Meatballs.
There
Interstellar's good, but it's no Cloudy.
It's no Cloudy.
There was no Flint Lockwood.
These are the kind of conversations we end up with when you do these deep dives. All right, I'm going to share my first pick, and it's going to be a softball, and it might be on some of your list in a way. Okay, I picked Star Wars. My favorite one is Empire Strikes Back. So I know it's kind of like a traditional choice for your top 5, but I mean, if Star Wars doesn't make my list, who am I kidding?
For real.
You know, so Empire Strikes Back. For all the reasons that probably anyone who's listening to this has already heard 1,000 times, You know, that cliffhanger. You know, the one where the bad guys win. That was a new experience for me when I was growing up.
Yeah.
You know, that is way different than anything else. I think it's expertly directed. I think it's nearly flawless as a film, even with all the changes that Lucas has made over the years. Very little has been changed except like a few technical touch-ups. You know, if I'm not, there's nothing terribly egregious. You know, in Empire Strikes Back, or not that Lucas's changes change terribly egregious things, but rather not even him. He couldn't go back and like really tinker. I think he changes like the voice of Boba and like the projection of the Emperor to more match, you know, the rest of the movies. But, you know, other than a few little technical aspects, there's no like giant musical sequence
but
that he adds.
But no one talks about the changes that he makes in that movie.
Exactly. So, I mean, Empire Strikes Back, Irwin Kershner's a great director in that film. Some of the best performances from everyone. I mean, the famous, you know, I love you, I know, you know, it gets...
What a line.
It gets...
So romantic.
It gets, like, repeated to us in Return of the Jedi, but it's kind of a callback. It's not as powerful, you know what I mean? Things like that. Just that downer. And that, like, anticipation, like, what happens next? I grew up with all the movies out already, obviously.
Yeah.
So, like, the movies had already, you know, been out for years when I was growing up. So it was like, we must watch the next one right now. I need to know what happens right now. I can't imagine the pain of waiting years for the resolution of Empire Strikes Back.
Especially when that first one came out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people must have been like, what did I just watch?
Yeah.
When can I watch more? And you have to wait, and then,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no. I mean, I feel like we're kind of spoiled where we are now, but...
Yeah. But even with A New Hope, or what would come to be known as A New Hope, with the original Star Wars film, there's a finality to it. It's like, yay, the good guys win and the bad guys.
That's true.
And there's some loose ends that you come back to. But with Empire, you're like,
Yeah,
I need to know right
cliffhanger.
now what happens.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of like, that's the first time I experienced that. And now, like you said, we're kind of spoiled. We're like, all over everything is like, okay. And we're kind of numb to the cliffhangers because we know that they're happening in every major series that we're watching. So we're like, oh, awesome. But I'm already prepared to, like, you know, wait a year or 3, you know?
Do you have any on your list, Star Wars movies?
Star Wars? Not really.
Okay. I'll go next just because I have one on, and that's actually going to be the one after Empire. It's Return of the Jedi.
Ooh. And
personally, I mean, I know Empire is the better film, but watching the series as a kid, obviously Star Wars was the first one was great. Like I love all of them, but Empire.
All of them?
The
original trilogy?
Yeah. The other one's
Okay.
a different story. No, that's not true because when I was a kid, I did enjoy. Enjoy. There was a lot of aspects that I did enjoy, and then when I watched them all, I was like, oh well. But going back to Empire, the feeling that you got when the bad guys won, the cliffhanger, I felt like terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, they just cut off my favorite character's hand. Like what? Vader won, and it was just, to me, I was like, man, the bad guys won. I don't like this feeling.
Yeah, Solo's dead, because for all we know, Solo's dead,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and it was just a time where I was like, I was really young. I was like, I'm not used to this. Like, I liked the kind of like I was even sad in A New Hope when Obi-Wan dies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, and to this day, I don't like, everyone says it, but I never really believed that Vader's the one that killed Obi-Wan.
Right.
I just always thought like he just like disappears into the Force before that. But a lot of people like want to argue, like, no, like Vader kills him. What are you talking about? And I was like, I didn't get that from it, but
I didn't see that.
But whatever. So going on to Return.
I mean, but he stomps the thing on the... Vader's confused himself is
Yeah.
kind of the cue to
It's
the
like,
audience.
I mean, that's how I took it as a kid, and that's how I still think it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But in Return, like, seeing, like, Luke in the beginning, Jabba's palace, and once he, like, ignites the green lightsaber, that's iconic for me. Like, I will always be a diehard Ignite the Green fan. Like, I'll always speak in favor of it because of this movie. This movie just kind of, like, captured the hero that Luke is, but also that kind of, like, family that they have together. Luke, Han, Leia, Lando, and even the droids is when Chewie as well.
Okay, I was about to say you better include Chewie.
No, of course. This isn't A New Hope. But for me, it's a very huge and special moment. Obviously, Anakin's redemption. There's so many things for me that makes this movie so great, and it was actually one of the changes that we were talking about, that they changed Yub Nub, the song at the end of the finale.
Agree to disagree, but yes.
To the I don't know how people don't agree with that, but
I personally, but that's fine.
I mean, okay, so that's something that you grew up with. That's something you grew up with.
Ultimately, that's what it is. Because like, if I look at it objectively, yeah, the new song is better. But it's like, it's impossible for me to look up objectively because I grew up like 50 times probably. I heard the original song. So now it's just something strange and new and different. And I can't objectively be like, oh, it's better. You know what I mean? Because it's just not what happens in my heart.
So it's the exact same position because the actual first time that I saw it was
a specialized
the 97 version, I think it was. And that to me was normal. And I loved it. So when I heard Yellow, I was like, what the heck is this, man? Like, you kidding me? And just so that the victory finale, just the song, just seeing everyone huddled up, the victory celebration, like, and all the additions of the cities and stuff like that. I thought those were pretty cool additions, like with Coruscant and stuff at the end. True. And just that shot of them all at the end, just like E.T. exactly. And just that shot of them at the end with the song, and then how it cuts into the theme, to the main theme, like that's on my list. That has to be on my list. It's one of my favorite memories, and it's my favorite Star Wars movie. Even though Empire's like right there.
I think one of my favorite things about Jedi is so much that goes unsaid. It's like Luke shows up with a black cloak, and you're like, is Luke evil now? And then, but he isn't. But also, they don't address at all. Yeah. It's like, what's going on? Like, why is Luke emo now? And what is happening? And it's just like, it doesn't care. It doesn't care. I'm gonna tell the story. You fill in the blanks, and like so much of that, like, you know, what are Vader's, what is his motivation? Yeah. You know, so much of that is just up to interpretation, and it's what makes a film great, where you're like still talking about it, like decades and decades after. Yeah. Link, what were you? Did you think of Star Wars at all when you were making your top 5?
Did I think of Star Wars at all? No, I didn't. Okay. However, my favorite Star Wars movie is Rogue One.
Okay.
I love that movie.
I love that movie too.
Yeah, that's a great film.
Watched it with Gabriel. Cried with Gabriel at the
end. I cried.
I have video evidence of me and Gabriel crying in the movie theater.
That was around the time that Carrie had passed away. Yeah. And it was just like seeing her there, like how they did the computer stuff and the actress. I don't know, it was just an emotional time, but I think that one was more of like the surprise.
I remember coming back to school the next day, like I was teaching, and my students would come up to me, and there was this Hispanic kid who like barely spoke a word of English, like, you know, just a few phrases or whatever. He was like, "Fui a Star Wars," and he's like, and like in his own like broken English, he was like, "Vader, pow!" and I was on the floor. I couldn't. It was amazing, and I was like, yes. You didn't know anything anybody was saying in the movie, but you like pulled at your heart, So.
Star Wars is a universal language.
That is true.
You don't need English for it. Alright, so the next movie I have on my list is, I guess, the most related to Star Wars. Not a Star Wars movie, but it's similar genre, and there's an actor in it that is now in Star Wars, and that is Attack the Block.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that movie. The reason why this movie is so special to me is because I watched it like a couple of weeks or a month early before it came out, and especially premiere with my friend. And we immediately fell in love with the movie. We fell in love with actors. John Boyega as Moses. Mm-hmm. Moses. Yeah, we were so shocked by how good this movie, because we had no idea what this movie was. I had no expectations, and I was blown away. It's a very simple movie. You know, it's no Star Wars where the graphics are amazing. Mm-hmm. The monsters are like, okay, they look like stuffed animals, but it was just so good. And the reason why I love it is not many people actually seen this movie. Mm-hmm. And so it feels like it's mine, because I was there when it happened. Right. I remember I was watching the Stephen Colbert's late night show, not the Colbert Report, the current one. And he was saying how when he watched Star Wars A New Hope 2 weeks before it came out, because he had like a special screening, and so he felt like Star Wars is his, and that's how I feel about Attack the
That
Block.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I love this movie. I love John Boyega. He's literally my favorite. Like, I was so excited when they casted him as in Star Wars as Finn. And I was just so I'm really disappointed what they did with him at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But I always root for John Boyega no matter what.
Yeah.
And I just want him to be one of the most popular actors in all of Hollywood because of this movie. Because I feel like I started off with him.
Because you knew him when he was cutting his teeth.
Exactly. Young ghetto boy in South London.
That's funny that you're throwing back to when we would go to these premieres. Like, I remember standing in lines waiting to watch a movie a couple of weeks or even a couple of just days, earlier, being in one line and seeing a line for another movie. I was like, what are they watching? How can I get into that line? You know? And just, you create this connection to films, and film, like any other art, like everything we've talked about the past couple of weeks, you just create this connection to it based on your experience with it. It doesn't exist in a vacuum, and it's like King Kong, the Peter Jackson movie. I remember that I went to a screening and it was like a month early, and it was the studio was doing it directly, so they gave us popcorn and t-shirts, and they and we had like the best seats in the house. And to this day I love that movie for no reason, because it's like, then I look back and I was like, this movie's not that great, this movie's too long. But you know what, I'll never change the way I felt that night that I was with King Kong, Peter Jackson's King Kong. But staying on the sci-fi category, the next film on my list is Terminator 2: Judgment Day.
Judgment Day.
This might be one of the first grown-up, if it wasn't the first grown-up movie that I ever saw. And I hadn't even seen Terminator. So like, I think I had my older brother explain it to me. He's like, he was the bad guy in the first one, and that's why she's scared, And that's it. That's the context that I had. But everything about it is just so BA. It's just so basically the 90s distilled into a cup. Like leather jackets, Guns N' Roses, semi-trucks jumping off bridges, shotguns, and just the special effects. To this day, the T-1000.
Oh my, so good.
It still holds up, and that's amazing. And then, so people talk about James Cameron being this great director, which I believe that he is. But, people uphold his most successful movies like Titanic and Avatar, and they're great achievements in their own way. But to me, Terminator 2 is what,
it's the best movie.
Yeah. It defines
it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the director's cut that they have, on DVD and Blu-ray, and they have it on digital now, too, where they add a bunch of things like Arnold smiling, trying to learn how to smile like a human. That cut is even better than the theatrical film, and I didn't think you could improve on a classic. But that movie is just, that's the benchmark that sci-fi has to stand. That modern sci-fi has to stand up to. If you're an epic, then you have to measure up to Star Wars. But if you're just on the ground with a robot or an alien or something, then Terminator 2. Because I hadn't experienced a movie that felt so real, so outside of the real world. You know what I mean? So Terminator 2, and to this day, I'll buy into anything Terminator. And if a bad Terminator movies, I'll be there on the first day. I'll be disappointed. But, I'm there for the whole ride. Terminator. I'll check out anything Terminator because of Judgment Day.
My first experience with Terminator was watching it in Telemundo in Spanish.
I love playing that movie.
So I really do. At least when I was growing up, they loved playing it. So I love the movie. I've never seen it without commercials. And then I saw it in English, but in another TV channel, so there were commercials there as well. But
and all the curse words are.
Yeah, and the hasta la vista part makes a lot more sense when it's in English.
So does that line stay unaltered?
Oh, okay. So yeah, you Terminator.
You were traumatized. It's did it go back to Spanish? What happened?
But I really enjoyed that movie, but I'm scared of it.
Why?
I don't know.
You saw it young?
Yeah, I saw it young.
You know what? Yeah, I'm not. Yeah,
I'm that's why I'm I don't know.
I'm not scared of it now because I feel like I overcame my fear. But when I was a kid, I was kind of terrified.
Yeah, I was terrified
because I saw T2, and then it was right around the time T3 was coming out.
Yeah,
and it just gave me this are we no one's ever really gonna win. This is so hopeless. I just felt a disparaging feeling. But then watching, I'm man, this movie's awesome, man. This movie's so good.
And I never watched when I was watching it, I never watched the first one.
Right.
So I was always confused. I'm like, why is it 2? Is this a Star Wars type of thing? Because
Episode 2.
they never played
Right.
the first one. So I'm like, okay, what's going on?
I wonder why that is. Why do you think it is that they never like played Terminator 1 as much as Terminator 2? Is it just because it's way older?
I think so.
Is it? I feel that like Terminator 1 is like way more R-rated than Terminator 2. They're
Could
both
be.
rated R, but I always feel like Terminator 1 is like so much stronger and grittier, but either way, there's also the shadow of the Terminator 2 cast. Because I went back, later and watched
It's
Terminator 1, and I was
It's
like,
not as good.
this one-
Like
Visually, it's not as.
yeah.
I mean, it's
Mad-
older, but
You think you can compare it a bit to like Mad Max, like the original?
Yes, absolutely. Well, because they both have a similar origin. Because I've looked into it and I know that like Terminator 1 is a low budget film,
Yeah.
and like Cameron was like studying in the school of Roger Corman. So the whole
Mhm.
point is like make the movie you want with as little money as possible. And with that, it's a grand achievement. And so is Mad Max. But then like when the budget goes up
Yeah,
for
once
the,
you get that
Yeah,
money,
when you
it
get to
looks
like
so
Road
good.
Warrior, like it's like, and that was the same thing. I saw Road Warrior first, was floored, and then I went back and saw Mad Max, and I was like, it's a bunch of Australian guys in pickup trucks going through paper trailers, like, it's again with what they have, it's an immense achievement, but like 10 years later with like 10 times the budget.
that was another one that I got a similar feeling with, like with Matt, like with the second one, I was like,
Right.
this movie is awesome,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go back to the first, I'm like, I'm depressed.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like it was so like intense, it was so strong, and I'm like, wow, like I mean, I was young when I saw it. I shouldn't have been watching in the first
Right,
place,
for
Yeah.
sure.
but still, like even to this day, like I'm not like I think the movie's a great film, but it's not something like I'm gonna rewatch all the time. That's
Right.
just one that I'm like, I'll kind of like if someone's gonna watch it, if we're all gonna watch it together, then sure.
Mhm.
But on my own, probably not.
all right. So you have 3. You mentioned 3. How many have you mentioned?
I've mentioned 2.
You want to go?
So next up on my list, calling back to Peter Jackson, this series is huge for me. It's Lord of the Rings.
I thought you were gonna say The Hobbit. I'm like, what you? Oh no, what you doing?
No, that's actually on my. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
no.
For reasons I won't even discuss. But anyways,
Only the Battle of Five Armies is on my list.
you mean there was more than one movie?
Yeah, unfortunately, there was 3.
You
Like,
didn't-
let's
So for Lord of the Rings, the series as a whole, yeah, it'll take me a whole entire day. I don't care. I'll watch all through it. But if I had to pick one, I think for me, I think the best one is The Two Towers. But for me, my favorite is Return of the King.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've noticed that I tend to be that finale type of, like, I enjoy the finale.
The optimist, the happy ending.
Exactly. The sequels are like, as I grow older and like my tastes change, I can objectively see that yes, this is a better film. It's a better movie through and through. I mean, that's not saying like it's miles ahead.
Yeah.
It
It
just
just
they're all so
edges
close.
out,
Like,
really.
exactly,
Yeah.
they're so close. But I mean, going back to like with Return of the Jedi, Return of the King, I must, like, when I was a kid, I was a sucker for the happy ending, for the hero Aragorn, Luke Skywalker. Like, those are my guys. Like, those are the people, like, I mean, I looked up to as a kid. Like, I love the movies, and just seeing that, like, just the epicness, the grandeur of that finale, especially watching, because I watched it in theaters with everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and that was, what, 2002, 2003?
About, yeah.
Yeah, around there.
I was like, what, 6, 7? So it was just kind of like, it was a lot to take in, but I was like, this is amazing. But at the same time, when we got the DVD editions, the extended cut editions, and I watched it, I'm like,
Even
this
better.
is
Makes so much
this is
sense.
so much better.
Yeah.
Like it was incredible, and I mean, hats off to Peter Jackson, because those 3 films,
That's honestly, yeah.
like, back to back to back, like that was an incredible feat.
Yeah.
That's the greatest fantasy movie in my opinion.
I think
Those
so.
are that trilogy.
agree.
That trilogy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
I agree. Like, I mean, the cast, the actors, fantastic.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong.
To me, Lord of the Rings is to fantasy what Star Wars is to
It's
science
sci-fi.
fiction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And if you have to put them in the same category, because like for example, there's so much fantasy in Star Wars, like fantasy tropes in science fiction, but like I'd say that Lord of the Rings is the Star Wars of this generation.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
And some people might say, oh well, there's not like as large of a fandom, it's not as pop culture, but there was a large period that Star Wars like had faded, and it's in a resurgence now, and we'll talk a little bit about that. in the weeks to come. But I think that Lord of the Rings, it's gonna bounce back. I never read
with the shows coming up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think there's gonna be a whole new generation that's gonna go back and experience
I'm super
them.
excited for
Those 4K transfers with a new show and a new anime. I think it's gonna pick up. I never read the Lord of the Rings books before the movies. I went to parochial school, so they weren't exactly on my reading list. I read The Hobbit as a kid out of curiosity. I'd seen the little cartoon movie,
Same, yeah.
But I had never seen the Return of the King or the Lord of the Rings animated one. I know they have those as well. So I went in blind. I was like, I don't know what this is gonna be about. Me and my wife, my girlfriend at the time, were just like, let's go check it out. It's like the new hot movie or whatever. Wow, were we blown away?
Was this for Fellowship?
This was for Fellowship. Yeah, I didn't know what to expect, And I remember at the end of it where it just went on and on and on, and then it finished, and it was like, where's the resolution though? There's no resolution. Mm-hmm. But I did not feel gypped. No. I felt like I got tons of a movie. I got a rising action and a falling action, but it didn't resolve.
Yeah, there was no denouement.
Yeah, it just incited a new journey. And I was like, where's this journey? When am I getting this? And I had to look it up. A year? And then the checking out the extended editions.
Oh, before we move on, what was that like? How did you find out it was coming out in a year at the time?
I think I went online, and I was like, oh, this guy Peter Jackson filmed these movies back to back, so they'll be done, And then as the release for Two Towers approached, word of the extended edition coming out on DVD, and I had already bought it theatrically. Yeah. But I was like, oh, I'm down for more of Fellowship of the Rings.
Yeah.
For sure. And then that became a yearly tradition for the next 3 years. It was like, I will get the extended one right before the new one comes out, and then I will watch the new one. And then I will wait a year to watch the extended edition of this one right before the third one comes out.
Oh, wow. So you watched them after the release of each individual film?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. So I was there on day one in the theater for all three of them. I was there day one for the extended edition DVD. Those beautiful 4-disc sets with the maps.
The colors, right? Is that the color one?
Yeah, red and blue.
That will always stay in my mind because that was around the house. That was it was the Star Wars trilogy, the original trilogy. Yeah. And the colored Lord of the Rings trilogy for me. Those are the most iconic DVD sets. And VHS. Yeah, and I remember when Return of the King, then it's year 4, a year after Return of the King came out theatrically. Now it's, the Christmas where Return of the King Extended comes out, and then it had a little cutout where it's if you have the UPCs for these 3, you'll get the case where they all go in. And it was time to cut out the UPCs from the other 2, and then just waiting for it. 4 to 6 weeks, oh, how grueling! And and then eventually it came and you put all 3 of them in. So, unfortunately, Lord of the Rings didn't make my short list. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, the third one in my movie, this is the only Disney movie I have. I love this movie so much. It's my favorite Disney movie of all time. Although I'm a hardcore Pixar fan, I love this movie so much. And that is The Emperor's New Groove. I think that is the best Disney movie ever made.
I can't wait to hear this.
I bought it. I think it was the first movie I ever bought with my own money. when I was 8 and 13.
You saw this theatrically?
No, I didn't know. I bought the actual VHS.
Before you saw the movie?
Yeah. Because you see the commercials. I'm like, oh, this movie looks funny. I don't know what it's about.
Okay.
So I had 17.
This is a blind buy.
Yeah, $17.50. I'm like, all right, let me buy it. I went to Toys R Us. I bought it. And I loved it. It was hilarious. And I just kept on watching it over and over again until it got to the point where I just could recite the whole movie by memory at the time. So I just love this movie. It's hilarious.
Goose go.
It has putty.
Squeaker, squeak, squeak.
Squeaker, squeak. It's, in my opinion, name a funnier Disney movie than that one.
A funnier Disney movie than The Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah, and you know me, I love comedy, right?
Yeah, okay, because I think when you say funnier, it's just clearly just laugh after laugh. Don't even care what the plot is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's I get Aladdin's really funny, but then it's a bunch of serious moments and a bunch of plot-driven moments. So it's not funnier because it's not just a joke every single line. Yeah. So...
I just love the movie so much. It's hilarious. I think Cusco should be a Disney prince. I don't know why they haven't put him up there.
What is his official title in the movie? Is he a
He's
king?
the emperor.
He's the
The emperor of
He's
Peru.
the emperor,
Yeah. Oh, that was a dumb question.
Just make him a
I
Disney
guess
prince.
It's not a Disney. He's not a Disney emperor. There's no such thing.
But yeah, like Crunk to me stole the whole movie.
Right.
You
Yeah.
think they have like
Patrick-
Disney Cesars?
that would be a weird brand. I'm not sure. Like
But yes, actually, this is my
Disney dignitaries.
I can see why that would be your favorite now that I think about it, because that movie, I mean, you're right, it is hilarious.
Yeah.
And I think like one of the biggest things for you is like you love comedy.
Right.
Exactly.
And if that's like a staple, that's like this movie has to be funny. If like I'm gonna enjoy this movie, if it's funny, I mean you can enjoy it.
yeah,
of course.
exactly.
But what you value the most is
It's
comedy,
comedy.
and you love animation, obviously, and the mix of the two. I can see why.
Yeah, so that's
definitely
why I
make
like
the list.
We're talking about a man who Star Wars was too serious for his list.
I mean, you can see why he wanted a Christopher Lord Miller.
Yeah.
Exactly. You see why I was hurt?
Good call, Kathleen. Good call.
No, Kathleen, you're wrong.
Good call.
It was just like the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs versions of Han Solo.
That's what I want. Have Bill Hader play Han Solo. Or have him, just do every other actor. He can voice every character in Star Wars.
The movie's
Have you seen him do have you seen Bill Hader do a Tauntaun dying?
What?
Yeah,
Yes.
I've seen that.
He does a Tauntaun dying and it's hilarious.
Okay.
So you're saying in their movie, Bill Hader would have played all the roles?
Yes. It's like that guy from the guy from the Clone Wars that does all the clones. Forgot the actor's name.
All right.
So yeah, what about you, George?
The next movie, ironically, I don't have a Disney movie on my list. So many of them are so important. If I had to choose one, I think it would have been Aladdin, but it just edged out what is now a Disney movie, and it's on the top of my list. And I always say this to everyone. I try to share this with everyone who knows me, and so many people have read this book and watched this movie just because they know me, because I'm like, I put it into like every student's hand that I can. It's The Princess Bride. That's one of my all-time favorite movies. It has everything. I mean, the movie sells itself.
Yeah, no, that's on my list.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
I love that movie.
It has action. It has comedy. It has a professional wrestler. It has.
Anybody
want
a peanut?
It has great acting. It has action. It's just it has everything. And that's how it sells itself, right? It's like the fantasy that has a little bit of everything, and it's just such a like small film in essence. Like when you think like fable, when you think fantasy. It's so grounded in a sense, because it's like, here's this cliff, and it's so obviously like a bunch of prop rocks on the stage. You know what I mean? On the staging area. Like, here's this hill, let's go film over there. You know what I mean? Here's this interior castle scene. But it just works. It's just because the script is so tight, the directing's so tight. Rob Reiner, that was like my first, exposure to him. And then when I was older, I would watch Spinal Tap. Love that movie. A Few Good Men. Love that movie.
Yeah.
When Harry Met Sally. And it's like all these different genres. I think he's like,
He's great.
I think he's underrated. I don't think
underrated.
he doesn't come up in a lot of conversations of great directors. I mean, if you know Rob Reiner, then you know he's great, but not everybody knows Rob Reiner. And Billy Crystal, like so many of the relationships, quote unquote, that I built with actors come out of that movie. It's like I will always watch whatever Carrie Eels or Billy Crystal or Mandy Patinkin is doing.
It's like the Terminator.
Yeah.
Like, you follow it wherever you are.
Yeah.
They built a lifelong fan.
Exactly.
Wait, I'm completely blanking out. Who does Billy Crystal play in this movie?
He plays Miracle Max, the like goblin magician.
He's in like makeup and stuff.
Healer man.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
That he like when Wesley dies, they take him there to resurrect him. He's kind of like he's a goblin monster. He has like a wrinkly face and gray hair.
It's like Dr. Frankenstein, basically.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and he has like his wife is Carol Kane,
Mm-hmm.
I believe, and like they're like an extremely Jewish version of
I gotta rewatch the movie.
Yeah.
because
The
I'm
movie's
blanking out.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there, and then he does the epic line like, "Good luck storming the castle."
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
So.
Man, that's another thing. So many iconic lines.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
As
And
you wish and conceive of like, and the one that stuck with me the most as a kid was, "My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die."
yeah,
That just always resonated. Like Manny Patinkin, and then
I would start every fight that way, and they didn't know what I was talking about. but so it would scare half of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that to my classmates, not to start a fight, but I would just like quote it randomly, and they're just like, "What?" And then I wasn't until like I said it to somebody older, like kind of like your age,
Right.
and they'd be like, "How old are you? How do you know that?"
Right. And now it's on Disney Plus, and you can share with the whole generation. I watched it with my little niece, and I was like, I don't know if she's 7, and I was like, I don't know if she's too young for it. Like, she's gonna get bored, or it's gonna be like too romantic, too slow. And she was like, I love it. I love Princess Buttercup, the movie. It's like my favorite. Let's watch it. And then one thing that keeps me alive every year is that I have it on my honors reading list, so random students get to choose it for their project, and I've had them do like animations on it, like short films, like create scenes based on the book, and it's just like seeing my students create something based on this thing that I love. It keeps me going. And since now we were like online this year, they were doing it through the computer, like they were at home and I was here and they're showing their presentations, and my niece was there and she's like, this is awesome. This like it was like a paper mache like 2D animation based on the story, like chapter by chapter, and she's like, after this we're watching the movie again.
I see your ploy. You got your students to give you new Princess Bride content.
Exactly. So epic. And it was on your list as well.
Yes, that was definitely. I love that film. I think I love that film in part because you watched it a lot, and I think I love it from there. My father also really enjoys it, but I was able to really, obviously I saw it as a kid, and I liked it. Did I understand every element, every joke?
Mm-hmm.
No, but I've realized that a lot of times in my life, a lot of the things I've watched, I've consumed that are like important to me now. I saw them when I was younger. I didn't understand the full context of them, but watching them as I'm older, kind of like, I enjoyed what I saw as a kid, and then when I watch it when I'm older and I have more context with it, I have like a deeper connection to it because it's like I kind of grew with this. It kind of like it showed me how I've changed as a person as well, but based on how I receive and how I take it, how I view this piece of art.
Yeah, I remember understanding it the older and older as I get, just like you said, especially with when I was a kid, there's a lot of heavy accents in the movie, and it's like I would like memorize lines and like get them completely wrong and just like, oh, I know the lines, and then you grow up and now we have subtitles. It's like, that's what they were saying.
That's what you say.
Yeah.
You just know how to sound like I'm saying.
Yeah, and then like I read the book and I was like the fencing, when they're going over the different styles of the fencing, I had no idea what anybody was saying in that scene, and then the book like it lays it out for you and you're like, oh, and it made me appreciate that scene so much more. So it's a never-ending relationship, me and the Princess Bride.
Since you guys both went, I think the fourth one on my list I have here, and this is probably the most serious movie I have, but there's also a lot of comedy in it, and that is Inglourious Bastards. I think this is Tarantino's best movie. A lot of people might argue Pulp Fiction might be the best one, but I think this is the best one. It has the best dialogue. It's Christoph Waltz,
Your list. Your list is funny when the most serious movie is Inglourious Bastards.
It's like, this is Christoph Waltz breakout performance here in America because he was pretty popular in Europe, but he does this and wins an Oscar immediately for Best Supporting Actor as the Nazi character he plays, and I just love this movie. Brad Pitt is hilarious in this movie. That whole scene where they're talking, that whole scene where they're talking, like trying to talk in Italian, comedy, like it's gold right there. And I love that movie so much. I think it's one of my favorites.
And that's the thing about like Tarantino. His style is so raw and like so unapologetic.
Yes.
But I feel like it's also so refined by the time we get to Inglourious Bastards. Because it's like what you said.
The dialogue is,
Yeah, what you said, like Pulp Fiction is the best thing. Yeah, sure, because it's like that gut punch coming out through the gate. But the more mature he is as a filmmaker, the sitting on a scene, the like really refining the dialogue, the like keen, the camera, all that other stuff. It's like this guy is a student of the game.
Yeah, and you see that. You see what you're talking about in that scene where it's at the beginning. It's with Christoph Waltz and Shoshana, and in the house trying to hide. Shoshana. That scene, it seems like it's a one long take, and it's like, oh, what's going on here? So let's just so suspenseful and.
Man, yeah, it was beautiful.
That
That
scene
whole
was beautiful.
interrogation,
Yeah,
it was so yeah, it captivates you right from the
It
jump.
really does. So I see that in that, like, you know, dragging out the scene, the little small, the minutia of it.
And the
Even
bar too. The scene in the bar.
Mm-hmm.
oh
Like,
yes,
like when he notices that subtle little like the three that he
yeah.
doesn't do it like the German way, and it's like that scene. Like I felt when I was watching, I felt so like I was gripped. I was so like into the scene. I was like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? What's gonna
Yeah.
happen? And he doesn't disappoint in a sense. Like he doesn't. If he's gonna do something, he kind of
builds attention.
Exactly, he builds
He
attention.
escalates.
He escalates it very well.
yes,
And it's kind of just like it's not like one of those like in a lot of like either movies or TV shows that we see. It's like something's building, and then nothing really kind of happens.
Right.
It kind of like
Yeah.
you almost get there, but you don't. Which
Because your expectation kind of nullifies whatever the revelation is.
Exactly.
At the final moment.
yeah, with Tarantino, I feel like
supersedes it.
he's always like, no, I'm going hard with this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go into it and I'm gonna indulge.
and even in that scene that you're talking about in the bar, you know, how the expectations just keep on getting higher and higher, and you're like, oh, what's going on here? Right after, there's comedy because it's Brad Pitt from upstairs trying like. You know, it's just trying to ask, hey, are you with us or you're against us? But it's hilarious. It breaks that tension there.
Yeah. There's almost a sense in Tarantino's filmmaking that like I kind of relate to in a sense where like he's doing brilliant work and like he's talking about something really serious, but before you can like criticize whether he's doing it effectively, it's like I'm kind of just playing around. Like I'm not even really, and you're like, this guy is excellent, but he doesn't care that he's excellent, like, because he's just gonna make a joke of the whole thing like a minute later.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like self-deprecating
Yes.
in the tone of his filmmaking.
But I think he utilizes it correctly though. 'Cause
Yeah,
you can
absolutely.
use self-deprecating techniques, but sometimes it doesn't play off. Sometimes it's like too much or not enough, and it's like it doesn't deliver.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like I'm a big fan of like Robert Rodriguez, for example, and I think he's great. But sometimes he can be overindulgent, and I think like Tarantino knows how to thread that line.
Yeah.
Like with Rodriguez, I also think like he doesn't care. Like I made the movie for me, you know, and for my audience. But I just think that Tarantino is just like he lives in those two worlds. Like
That's his best movie, right?
I think so.
I agree, yeah.
I think it's his best movie.
How about you, Gabe? What do you have?
Last one on my list is this one's near and dear to my heart. It's The Dark Knight.
Oh, I have a question about that. Go on.
So, I mean, Batman.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
what can you
There
say?
has to be a Batman.
I think that there's something pretty. I mean, I have 2 Nolan films on my list.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoy Christopher Nolan's films, and yes, I was introduced to him by like his big blockbusters, but in going back, like Memento, and I think was it. Which is the one before Memento?
The Fallen? No, it's
Well, I mean, yeah, the following was before Memento.
That's like
I
a
think it
student
was-
film.
yeah, it
That's a
was The
student
Fallen.
film, right?
Yeah. Memento is.
What comes after Memento? Is it Batman Begins?
No,
No.
he has one in the
he has
middle.
another one.
Oh, no, Prestige is after that, right?
Yeah.
Siege is right after Batman Begins.
But anyways, I digress. The Dark Knight, for me, I mean, obviously Batman, but the performances, you can go on and on. Heath Ledger, Christian Bale, Michael Caine.
Chef's kiss.
It's just so beautiful. But I think the special thing about this movie is how grounded he made a superhero.
Yes.
How it's like, man, that could actually kind of happen.
Right?
Yeah.
like this could literally just be some crazy dude who, you know, decides what like
That
he's-
bank scene.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
it's just from the beginning.
Right?
Like the tension it builds, and it doesn't stop from there. Like everything about that movie, I love, and it's beautiful. And I mean, even going into the next one, like I said before, I'm a huge.
That's what I was going to ask you, because you mentioned that your favorite movies and trilogies are like the last ones.
Exactly.
And then there's this.
And this is the one that like kind of like stops it in its tracks, because I remember when Dark Knight Rises came out, we watched all 3 of them. The 3 of us were in the theater.
Right.
We watched all 3 of them in a marathon, and that was one of my favorite experiences.
Yeah,
best
ever,
day
ever,
of my life.
Yeah.
ever.
I peaked.
And so watching that there was a while that I'm like, is Dark Knight Rises my favorite? But I realized that it was just because like the emotional like roller coaster that I went in that night.
Yeah.
That culminated with Dark Knight Rises, and it's like obviously, like I said, like I like finales. I like the great like endings, the happy endings, and things like that. But I went back to the Dark Knight, and I watched it. And I'm like, I can't compare. Like they're great. They're both great. Like Dark Knight Rises is a great film, and I love it. But I feel like that one is more like the emotions I had from that experience kind of like picks it up way more than maybe it should.
Yeah.
Right.
But the Dark Knight, like emotionally, I watched that movie with my mom. I was in New York at the time, and my mom, like we were in the summer, and we were in New York for the summer, and it was just me and her, and I'm like, Mom, can you please go take me to watch the Batman movie? And that was like my first like, that was one of my first like, I think truly like, the first one was Avatar, but no, yeah, Dark Knight was my first in IMAX.
Right.
And that was like my first time like, I saw how much my mom paid. It was like $18, especially for those theaters in New York.
Yeah.
And
That's
I was
cheap
like,
for New York.
and I was like, what is happening? And and so from the beginning, even my mom was into it. My mom, like, she didn't really understand what was happening. She'd never seen the movies, but like even she was entertained, and we like, and that's something that I keep with me because me and my mom don't watch movies together. Right. I don't think that's ever really like, aside from like Titanic when she put it on or whatever, or like she doesn't really watch movies, but she gets into them, and she knew that I love them. But that was one of the times. The other only time I think it was that we watched the movie together was Attack of the Clones, because she took me, and that was
just as good.
So for this one, like it was a moment that I just remember like sharing with my mom, which is very rare because I can share it with like my dad and like my uncles and other family members. My mom was very different. And it's like a Batman movie that she didn't really understand much about. Like it was different. I know she didn't like completely understand it, but even she was entertained.
Yeah.
And just watching it at that point, like it just cemented Batman for me. Like obviously I loved him as a character from the animated series, and I hadn't really read a lot of comics at the time.
Right.
So for me, like Bale was one of the main like figures of Batman. And I remember, funny little side story, for Batman Begins, when we all watched it together in the theaters, the whole movie, I thought Batman was Tom Cruise. I had never heard of Christian Bale. I'd never heard of Christian Bale before, and the whole movie, I thought it was Tom Cruise. Like, Tom Cruise is a great Batman. This is a great choice. And then the credits, and then like we're talking throughout the movie, and it's like, Tom Cruise did a great job. He's like, what are you talking about? It's Christian Bale, and I'm like, that's Tom. And I was defending it to the death. I was like, that's Tom Cruise. You can't tell me otherwise. And they're like, no. So I was like, all right, fine, watch. Then the credits roll down and it says Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne Batman. I'm like, who is that?
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's just like Christian Bale for me, like he's Batman. Like obviously Kevin Conroy, I think to me is like the voice of Batman. Like they're both essentially Batman, but like a visual representation for me. I think it's from the films. And I mean, Heath Ledger. What can you say about the performance?
You know what they should do? Someone should edit all the Dark Knight trilogy, but instead of having
Christian Bale's voice,
Kevin Conroy's voice.
That'd be very interesting.
Yeah.
But sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But I mean, Dark Knight Rises. I mean, Batman Begins. Like even going back, having to go through this listing, and I was like, Batman Begins is a better movie than Dark Knight Rises too. Like
Right.
No. Yes.
But I think again for me, like the ending of the trilogies, like they hold a special place, and it's like, I mean, I love that film. But there's no competition for me. Dark Knight wins the whole way.
I honestly think Dark Knight is the greatest superhero movie ever.
Yeah.
And you have Endgame. Endgame's amazing. But there's something about the Dark Knight that
Dark Knight doesn't need.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Not that it's bad or anything, but
it does. Yeah, it doesn't need.
Yeah. I mean, man, I hate to talk in 10 minutes about the Dark Knight, but this movie is so powerful to me, and I have a very similar story as the one you had with your mom. It was like when my wife's mother, she was sick with cancer, and we were spending a lot of time at home taking care of her, and I was like, this is my opportunity to change this woman's life by watching every Marvel and DC movie that she has missed through. So we watched the whole Marvel gamut, and she fell in love with Iron Man. Tony, yo quiero Tony.
Yes, I remember that.
But when we got to the Dark Knight, Rises hadn't come out yet. at the time, and we got to the Dark Knight, and I remember watching Dark Knight. I'm like, this is my favorite one, and this is gonna hit her. And at the end of the movie, she's just, and again, like you said, like she doesn't really speak English, but she's just grabbed by this film, and at the end, she's crying, and she's like, "Pero por qué? But why? Why? Batman didn't do anything wrong. He shouldn't have to run." Like, why are they after Batman? Yeah. And just this anguish as to this grave injustice that has happened, all because of the Joker. And it was like, that movie is just so powerful. Yeah, and the way that, like you said, we saw them all together that one night, because my experience was like Batman Begins was amazing when it came out. Good, yeah. It was like, I was tired of everybody's origin, but we never get Batman's origin, so this movie was amazing. Then The Dark Knight came, and I was like, Batman Begins sucks compared to The Dark Knight, right? But then when we watched all three of them together, it was like, it's like a loop, because it was like, Dark Knight Rises is a sequel to Batman Begins also. Yeah. And it was like, oh no, they're both beautiful parts of a puzzle piece, and you can argue about whether they stuck the landing or not, but at the end of the day, I do think that the third chapter like suffered a little bit because of Heath Ledger's tragedy. Yeah. And I think that if, what was rumored that there would be some involvement between his character in the final chapter, taking that out obviously was a big, and I also think the emotions that we felt about losing Ledger during that time, in the height of that, makes it like the high point of the series. But I remember teaching Batman Begins for like years and years, like in public school, the hero's journey. Like you can pick one movie like in the unit to like track the hero's journey. I'm like, Batman Begins, it's perfect, it's archetypal, it's perfect. With that being said, none of those movies made my top 5, just barely, because I actually chose Batman Returns instead. And again,
wait, what? Yeah. Which one?
Batman Returns. That's the second one, Tim Burton's film, the sequel to Batman '89.
Okay, it's not the. I don't know why my mind went. Yeah, George Clooney, and I'm like.
Clooney's and Robin.
Get out of here.
Forever is with Jim Carrey. Okay.
That was the first movie I ever watched. The one with Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze, yeah.
No, that is.
Oh, that was another one with Telemundo loved.
Telemundo loved.
That was always on.
But Batman Returns, and like it's like Link said, his list is like the movies that bring him joy. For me, it's those movies that shaped me. And I look at my list and I was like, The Dark Knight, one of the best movies ever. But for some reason, on my top 5 was Returns instead. Because I remember Batman 89 was one of the first movies I ever saw in the theater. My dad took me. And mind you, it's probably 1990. I don't think it was 89 when I saw it. No, I'm sorry. That was a lie. Batman 89 is the first VHS tape I had. That was mine. I saw that at home. Then my dad took me to my first movie, and it was Batman Returns. Oh, wow. So I was like, Catwoman, Penguin, this whole thing, that gothic setting that Burton does in '89. And remember, we didn't get good superhero movies. Like there was like Superman, ones, right? Yeah, there was like Superman, and like that movie was really old, and I hadn't even seen it yet at that point, and everything else was terrible.
Christopher Reeve Superman?
Yeah, the Christopher Reeve Superman. So this was like, this is a good movie. Like the setting that he creates in Batman 90, he takes it to the next limit and Returns. Everything is so beautiful. The music, Danny Elfman, and it was just like the way that Batman and Batman Returns shaped Batman the Animated Series, which we talked about is one of my favorite series of all time. I've bought it 20 times. I'm constantly watching it, sharing it with generations. Like that was exactly what I believed Batman to be at that time, and he's so much more than that. But that just shaped like, this is how you make film, and I love it. So Batman Returns edged out, and I'm glad that you brought the Nolan representation, because I was also sad that I didn't have a Nolan film on my top 5. These lists are hard to make.
I guess I'm gonna bring out the Zack Snyder representation, because
I'm sorry.
No.
I was surprised Dark Knight wasn't on your list, Link. You're always talking about this movie.
I really am.
It's not funny enough, right?
It's not funny.
Yeah. You're always like, if it has Dark Knight, then I'll watch it or I'll play it. If it doesn't, then no. If it's as good as Dark Knight, then I'll if it's not as good as Dark, it's your benchmark.
It is my benchmark, yeah. Alright, so the last one on my list, I think it's the funniest movie I've ever seen. If you've never seen this movie, I totally recommend it. It's called What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah, I love this movie so much. I remember I was in college when I watched the trailer, and they had this one line that I thought was so funny. It was these werewolves, right? And one of them cursed, and the guy goes, whoa, we don't curse. What are we? we're werewolves, not swearwolves. And I don't know why this movie hadn't come out yet. I'm like, that's it. I'm in. That line got me, cooked me, and I watched it and I was not disappointed. I love mockumentaries.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons I love The Office and Parks and Rec.
Right.
But it takes a mockumentary genre and it gives it a Taika Waititi comedy.
Yeah.
Sense of humor to it, and I love Taika Waititi. So it was just so great, so dry, and I just love that movie so much.
Yeah. I think so many of us have that like one line that sold us on a movie. For me, it was Rushmore. I saw the trailer for Rushmore, and it was like, these are my OR scrubs. Oh, are they? And I was like, I need to watch this movie right now. I don't know what it's about, but I need this movie in my life. Can you think of one, Gabriel? Do you have one on the top of your head, or?
Oh, I'd probably come out with a joke about like Fast and Furious.
Oh yeah.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, but and it's funny when you said mockumentaries like Spinal Tap and like the other works, you know, from those people. Those mockumentaries are like super awesome, and Taika Waititi's work is super awesome because I love like Hunt for the Wilder People.
Hunt for the Wilder People, yeah.
What was the other one? The
JoJo's Rabbit.
Yeah, Jojo Rabbit, based on the
so
novel
great.
Cajuns guys. That's another one who you see him mature as a filmmaker.
As a filmmaker, yeah. Because if you start out with Shark versus Eagle or Eagle versus Shark, you're like, okay, it's not there. And then he does, what does he do right afterwards? I forgot. I'm not sure what he does, but it's funny. He just starts building up to it, and I just love Taika Waititi. He's great, and I really enjoy this movie. And you know, they made a show about it, and I was very iffy about the show because it's not the same characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's produced by the writers and Taika Waititi. Also, there's that Flight of the Conchords connection to it because Jermaine Clements is in it.
Right.
And I love Flight of the Conchords. But yeah, they made this show, What We Do in the Shadows, and if you haven't seen it, it's hilarious. I think it's one of the funniest shows currently on TV. So yeah, it's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah. There's also the Star Wars connection there too, right?
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Taika plays the IG droid.
He directs episodes.
And he directs the Mandalorian.
Yeah, episodes.
And Mark's in the show, man.
Oh yeah, and Mark Hamill is in season 2 of What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, spoilers.
That's on you. You had
Season 3 hasn't even started yet. That's not
you had a pandemic.
I follow Mark Hamill on Twitter.
Yeah.
On Twitter, so I just see it.
Oh my goodness, that episode was so great.
Okay, that you have a pandemic. I feel like there was more content than ever, like to consume.
The world stopped just for us to catch up.
Yeah, but I did not want to be in front of a screen. Okay, so I guess that leaves me with my last one, if I'm not mistaken, and that is Fight Club. And this might be depending on how depressed I am, or how cynical I am, or how hopeful and optimistic I am. Between this and Princess Bride, my favorite movie of all time. Just Fincher's directing. Fincher is one of the modern masters, I think.
I love Fincher.
Brad Pitt is in like
sexy,
the best form in this film.
Yeah, that's his peak.
Yeah, Edward Norton. His performance is amazing. I fell in love with Helena Bonham Carter as a character actress in this movie. The script is so tight. The book by Chuck Palahniuk is great source material. I love that book as well.
Did you read it first or did you watch it?
No, I read it after. I saw the movie, then I went back and I was like, oh wow. What I love about the film is that it's a great companion piece to the novel, because it's like I can't be like, oh, this one's better, like, because there's things in the film that I'm like, oh, this is way better, like this is more palatable, you know. And then also the way it ends is perfect for a film. But then you go over to the book, and the book is like more hardcore, maybe even more complex, and the way it ends is perfect for a novel.
It wouldn't translate.
Yeah. So I recommend them to anyone. Fight Club is like the battle cry for my generation, or at least it's the one that I had the most like connection to. Like it was like, this is how I felt, and it was. I'll always remember that line that's like, that about, to paraphrase, that every other generation had like a great war, and our great war is a spiritual war. You know, they had a Great Depression. Our Great Depression is our lives, and like that resonated so much with me, like the spiritualness. But then after that, in a post 9/11 world, like when it was like, oh, this is this is that period. Like, I remember growing up, I was in high school at the time when the towers came down, and I was like, oh, this is that thing, that monumental moment, like, in our generation that we were just sitting idly by, like, waiting for.
Yeah.
So it works on such a different level in a post-September 11 for those that went through that period that it resonated, like, and it still does to this day. Fight Club.
Yeah, that was definitely
A great
movie that I would see it, like, pieces, like, family members watching it, but that was always a movie, like, you're not watching this.
Yeah,
like, that was, like, you're too young to watch. And I'm glad, because...
I still think I'm too young to watch it.
I mean, that's how I felt when I did watch it. I was like, wow, I'm really glad I didn't watch this as a kid. But watching it, and taking more into context, it's such a good movie. Like, it's so great. It makes you think. Like, the performances, they're just so good. And, like, for me, I didn't understand it at first. Like, it was something like, this is too smart for me right now. I'm not there yet. So I watched it. I'm like, okay, this was cool. I think I kind of get it, but not really. And then I watched it. I'm like, you catch more things. Like, I feel like every time you watch it, you catch something different, a little bit different, or you take it in a different way.
You take it in a different way. Absolutely.
And I think films that can do that are just something that's truly special.
I think what's powerful too is a film that opens up a dialogue that I don't necessarily agree with. There's a lot said in the film. And, like, some of it is, like, that's me. That's true to life. That's the truest thing I've ever heard. And then there's some things that's, like, I disagree with this. Like, this is totally, like, this is no way to view the world. Like, it'll just lead to self-destruction.
Yeah.
But to have the discussion, to have those questions. And I think for me and for a lot of people, if you watch this film, you know, I was of high school age. If you watch it, you know, at a young age, you're like, nobody's asking these questions. Or at least nobody's asking them to me, you know? Nobody's bringing up these topics. And just... that rawness and the, like, I thought about it, other people think about it, you know? To me, that was the connection that it made with me at the time.
All right, well, that wraps up our episode, I guess. So we've been doing after every episode, we've been recommending a movie.
Yep.
So let's recommend one movie from your list. Don't say which one you would recommend. I guess for my list, it's a tough one between What We Do in the Shadows and Attack the Block, but since not many people have seen Attack the Block, I recommend go check out Attack the Block. It's great. What about you, Gabe?
All right, so since most of my movies are in a series, I'll make it easier for you, and they're all extremely huge blockbusters. I would recommend The Princess Bride.
No way.
Okay, I'm glad you did that for me. So then I'll say Fight Club. If you haven't seen Fight Club, read the book, watch the movie. I don't think you'll be disappointed. You may not agree, but I think it's an interesting conversation. So
yes. All right, guys. Well, join us next week as we talk about the state of Star Wars, where it currently is and where it's gonna go. We all love Star Wars here, so I'm excited about that one.
Yeah, this will be our first thematic topic. We're done with these top fives. Hopefully you've gotten to know a little bit more about us, some insight into who we are and how we think, and that's what we're going to talk about, where we've been, where we are, and where we're headed in Star Wars. So until next time, just keep on searching.